Hello everybody and welcome to the 8th and final video on our series of videos on the United States War of Independence. What we're going to do in the video today is briefly look at some of the consequences of the War of Independence and what happened in America after it. We're also going to have a quick look at the life of George Washington to summarize that. As always, we begin with our learning outcomes. So by the end of this presentation, you guys should know 3 facts about George Washington's life. You guys should know some of the main consequences of the US War of Independence, and you guys should know one reason for and one reason against stating the war was a revolution. So as we saw in the last video, George Washington came out of retirement and was elected the first president of the United States in 1789. This was the perfect end to a wonderful career which had seen Washington rise from a surveyor in his youth where he mapped the Ohio River and the Shenandoah Valley to the owner of a huge plantation in Virginia, which was known as Mount Vernon. He became a war hero in the 7 Years' War, which was such a big part in starting the War of Independence, and he was elected as the Virginia representative in the First Continental Congress. He was one of the strongest patriots fighting against unfair taxation in this Continental Congress, and he became the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army after this. With the help of people like Von Steuben and Lafayette and Nathanael Greene, he turned them into a highly professional army, which eventually led them to victory. He retired afterwards, as we said, not looking for power, but was eventually brought back as the country struggled to figure out its identity. He served as president for 2 4-year terms and at the end gave back power and retired again. History is littered with people who couldn't let go of power, but Washington did, and he set the newly created Democratic Republic on the right path. Some say that the fact that he gave up power was probably the most important thing he did, even more important than him helping them win the War of Independence. So the United States started out as 13 colonies, as we saw, but within 16 years it had more than tripled in size to become the country we know today. In 1803, they bought the Louisiana Territory from France. They bought Florida in 1819, and by 1848 they had taken the rest of the land. They had annexed Texas, they had taken California, and then they moved into the Oregon country. So what were the main consequences of the US War of Independence, and can we call it a revolution? So to answer the first question, some of the main consequences were that it set an example for other countries wanting independence from large empires or large countries. It created a republic, which was not a popular form of government at the time. It also helped to inspire the French Revolution, which will become an even more extreme revolution. It inspired the 1798 rebellion in Ireland, and it set America on the path to becoming the most powerful country in the world. Now, there is a debate as to whether it is a revolution or not. Now, a revolution is defined as a sudden, radical, or complete change, a fundamental change in political organization. So, politically, it definitely was a change. They swapped a monarchy with a king for a democracy, and they created a whole new country. It brought in a new form of government, and it was based off the writings of some of the great philosophers of the time, such as Baron de Montesquieu. His quotes that all men are born equal, but they cannot continue in this equality, and society makes them lose it, and they're recovered only by the protection of the law. Again, he's talking about how important it is that people are protected by their countries and the law stands up for them. He also said that it is necessary from the very nature of things that power should be a check on power. So those in power should be able to check by somebody else with equal power. It really inspires the 3 bodies that America set up in their government: the judicial body, the senatorial body, and House of Representatives, and the executive body, which would be the president. The United States, it brought in the Bill of Rights, which guaranteed civil rights and liberties, like freedom of speech, which really was revolutionary at the time. It's not quite as revolutionary as the Declaration of the Rights of Man, which the French brought out during their revolution in 1791, but it was still a very revolutionary idea. However, it is also it allowed slavery to continue in a lot of the colonies. Native Americans had their lands taken from them and their rights ignored. A Native American was classified as a non-human if they didn't pay taxes, and a slave is in the US Constitution as 3/5 of a person. Women were also excluded from politics, so there are some serious issues with this idea. Socially, not a lot changed. The only people who really benefited from it were the white male colonists. And if you look at the top, that bunch of white men are the founding fathers of America, and you look at the bottom, they are the nobles in England. And as you can see, they're all white, they're all privileged older men. And it really is that the question then becomes, was there much of a change? There was a political change, but were things much different than before on a social level when all these issues were still there? That's a question that you guys really need to answer for yourselves. So that brings us to the end of our presentation and the end of our time with the United States War of Independence. So by the end of this presentation, you guys should now know 3 facts about George Washington's life. You guys should know some of the main consequences of the US War of Independence. And finally, you guys should know one reason for and against stating that the war was a revolution. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys got something good from this video.